There weren't too many simulation-focused games that were seen on the PlayStation. You did have many strategy games that contributed to different factors, but pure simulation games were definitely a rare commodity. While you had many different racing games that had simulation features and that focused on those aspects, but there were very few games available on the system that didn't allow you to directly play or control the vehicles themselves, but focused more on behind the scenes with all of the setups with suspension, tyre pressure settings, drivers, fatigue, all of those elements. There's only a handful of games that I've been able to find so far that manage to work within those categories, and many of these type of racing games were only seen in Japan, as they would not have appealed to the wider audience in other regions. One of the titles we'll be looking at here simply goes under the name of Formula 1 Grand Prix 1996. Team Une Simulation, as it was called, because it was only released in Japan. It did get a sequel sometime later in the same year, as it released early in 1997, but it was focused on the 1996 Formula 1 Grand Prix season that allowed you to choose from all of the top drivers with all of their specific names and teams, but dived more behind the scenes regarding setups of cars, all of the internal structures between running a team, making sure the drivers were able to compete, making sure you had the right aesthetics, you had the right aerodynamics, the right engine, all of the different aspects of managing a team and a race car leading up to each race. Now, it did give you behind the scenes elements with that when you did complete all of the right setups, for when you had the right fuel systems, to even choosing the right types of fuel that you could use for your cars. You would have different sponsors that you could work with in order to formulate an entire plan so that you can get the car up and running, and then you would work with a team leader or manager which would end up giving instructions throughout the race and determine different outcomes, whether you were to overtake or whether you were to hold back. They would tell you when to pit in, or whether you had to let a teammate overtake you, or you had to give orders in order for you to overtake a teammate, and so forth. So there were so many different dynamics that were in play. Now, it did give you a simulation effect with a race that was in motion, so it would give you all of the different simulation aspects that would play out from a replay of a race itself, like as if it was acting on a live scene, and you would get interactions from your team manager regarding what was going on. Now, the only downside with the game is because the fact is it was released only in Japan, it was in the Japanese language, so there's no known translations currently at the moment of what is actually being said. So getting into a game to get everything up and running can be quite a task in itself. It can be quite tricky because there is certain settings and certain sequences that you have to get correct and get lined up in order for everything to start progressing, and if you struggle to do that, you could be stuck on the menu system with no way of being able to move forward or backwards to previous menus, so you can literally be stuck again because of the language barrier. So it can definitely cause a lot of frustration, but once you do get it up and running, it will give you all of those aspects needed to complete a race, and you can make choices. You'll have dialogue on the screen that will show you exactly what to do and what not to do, more to the point, and it gives you everything pretty much in real time as the race is happening, almost like an overview of the entire event, but just where you have the choices to interact with. The concept sounds simple on paper, but because of the language barrier, like I said, can be quite difficult to master, so it's just one of those things. Now, if you do understand the language, then you'll be able to understand really what's going on, but for the rest of us, it will be a chore in itself, but it is what it is. Hopefully at one point there will be some form of translation for this, and even its sequel, which I will cover in a future video, that pretty much goes through the same type of elements but focuses more on the more modern season leading up to that point. But regardless, I would love to know your thoughts of this game, and are you interested in these more simulation focused affairs that were released on the PlayStation back in the day, and what do you think of it overall? So be sure to shout it in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other interesting and quirky simulation games like this that were also released on the PlayStation back in the day, especially from Japan, then you can check out the playlist here on the screen to see more of those games in action. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.